Right now, your heart is beating. You are not thinking about it, but it has a fixed number of beats left, and one day, one of them will be the last. Picture that exact second, the instant the beating stops for good. What your brain does in the 60 seconds after that moment is one of the strangest things science has ever recorded.
Let's call it second zero. The heart stops. Almost instantly, blood pressure collapses to nothing. The 5 liters of blood that were rushing through you a moment ago simply stop moving. No pump, no flow. To a doctor watching a monitor, this is the beginning of the end. But inside your skull, nothing has happened yet. Your brain doesn't even know.
For the first several seconds, your brain keeps running on the oxygen already in it, like a room that stays lit for a moment after the power is cut. Your neurons are still firing. Your last thought, whatever it was, is still unfolding. You, in the most literal sense, still you. But that reserve is draining fast. And what happens when it finally runs dry is not what almost anyone expects. You would expect the brain to simply fade, the light dimming to black, activity trailing off into a flat, silent line. For a long time, that is exactly what scientists assumed happened. But when they finally attached sensitive instruments to a brain at the moment of death, they found the opposite. The dying brain doesn't always fade. Sometimes it erupts. In 2013, a neuroscientist named Jimo Borjigan was studying rats when she noticed something no one could explain. In the seconds after the animal's heart stopped, their brains lit up with a surge of high-frequency gamma waves. Not weak, dying flickers, a wave of activity more organized, more synchronized than the normal waking brain. For a brief moment, the brain looked more awake than awake, precisely as it died.
It was one of the most surprising findings in modern neuroscience. But it came with an obvious objection. Rats are not people. A surge in a rodent brain doesn't prove anything about the last thoughts of a human being. Borjigan knew that, so she waited for the rare, difficult chance to look at the one thing that would settle it: a dying human brain.
That chance came in 2023. Her team studied patients in a coma as life support was withdrawn, with their family's permission and their brains being recorded the entire time. In 2 of them, something remarkable happened. In the moments after the heart stopped, the brain surged, gamma waves flaring in the exact regions tied to conscious experience and memory.
Sit with where that surge happened. It fired in the parts of the brain that light up when you recall a vivid memory, when you dream, when you feel like a self moving through the world. The dying brain was not going quiet. In its final moments, it was running hard in the machinery of experience itself. And that is where this connects to something people have described for centuries. Because for as long as we have been able to restart a stopped heart, the people we bring back have told us strange, consistent things. A flood of memories, a rush through the events of their life, a sharp, calm awareness. Reported not as a fading, but as something intense and lucid, during the very minutes their heart was not beating. For a long time, medicine waved it away. Then, one doctor decided to actually study it.
His name is Sam Parnia. In a landmark study called AWARE, his team tracked more than 2,000 cardiac arrests across 15 hospitals, carefully recording what patients could recall from the time they were clinically dead. The vast majority remembered nothing at all, just a blank. But a small, stubborn fraction, around 2%, reported clear, conscious awareness during the exact minutes their heart was not beating. And a few remembered things they should not have been able to know.
In the follow-up study, AWARE 2, it got stranger. During CPR on patients whose hearts had already stopped, the team caught spikes of brain activity on the monitors, including gamma patterns, appearing minutes deep into the arrest, long after the heart was silent. And afterward, some of those patients described lucid, structured experiences. A few reported watching their own resuscitation and could describe details of what the team had done around their body.
Now, an honest word, because this is exactly where people overreach. These are small numbers. A single verified case does not become a law of nature. Scientists are still arguing hard over what these signals mean. But the objection cuts both ways. You cannot simply wave away a clear burst of organized brain activity in a person whose heart has stopped. Something is happening in there. The only disagreement is about what.
And here is the detail that makes it genuinely hard to sleep on. You would expect a dying brain to be chaos, random noise, cells misfiring as everything falls apart, but that is not what the instruments show. The surge is the opposite of noise. It is coherent, organized, more synchronized than your brain is at this very moment reading these words. A dying brain is not supposed to look like a brain having a clear, ordered experience. This one does.
Which forces a deeply uncomfortable fork, and science cannot yet tell you which way it bends. Either this beautiful, organized surge is an elaborate final echo, a collapsing system firing off one last meaningless pattern as it dies, or, in those seconds, something is genuinely being experienced. One of those is true. The data, right now, does not know which, and that uncertainty sits underneath every single one of us.
And it forces us to fix a mistake baked into how we talk about death. We treat it like a switch, alive then dead, one clean flip. But biologically, that switch does not exist. Your heart stopping is not the moment your brain turns off. There is a gap between the two, a window where the heart is silent, but the brain is still intact, and sometimes still firing.
That window is why doctors can bring people back at all, and in the cold, it can stretch far longer than you think, which is how someone can fall into freezing water, have no heartbeat for an hour, and still be revived with their mind intact. So death, up close, is not a wall you hit, it's a slope you slide down, and somewhere on that slope, the brain may run one last extraordinary program.
So why would a dying brain surge instead of simply stopping? Nobody knows for certain yet, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. There are theories, a final, desperate flood of neurotransmitters, the brain fighting to restore order as its chemistry collapses, or memory circuits firing all at once as the oxygen that normally holds them in check drains away. Real answers? Still being worked out.
But the correlation is hard to ignore. The surge happens in the memory and experience regions. The survivors describe memories and experience. The map of the dying brain and the stories of the people who came back are pointing, roughly, at the same place. It does not prove what the experience is. It just makes it very hard to believe there is no experience at all.
And here is the exact edge of what science can say, the line it cannot cross. It can measure the signal, it can time the surge, map the region, chart the wave, but it cannot climb inside it. It cannot tell you what that final minute is like from the only seat that matters, the one behind your own eyes. We can watch the dying brain do something astonishing. We cannot yet know what it feels like to be it.
So this video ends where the instruments end, and not one step past it. What that surge is, and whether anything lies beyond the final flicker, is a door these machines cannot open, and this channel will not pretend to. Science can describe the dying brain in stunning detail. It does not claim to see past it. That question is left exactly where it belongs, with you.
But it does leave you with one strange, measurable gift. Your last minute may not be a slow fade into nothing. On the instruments, it can look like the opposite, a brain flaring brighter than it does in ordinary waking life, deep in the circuitry of memory and self. Whatever that is, it appears to be one of the most intense neurological events your brain will ever produce.
So think back to second zero, the instant your heart goes still. We've always imagined it as the end of the story, the final full stop. But the science quietly suggests it might not be the last line at all. It may be the opening of the strangest, most vivid minute your brain ever runs. And whatever happens in that minute, it is still entirely and only yours.